The Lowcountry Regional Transportation Authority is considering establishment of a marine division that could lead to a regional ferry system. How would it work and how could it benefit Daufuskie Island and the greater Hilton Head Island area? Here to talk more about that is Aaron Crosby. Aaron is the chair of the Daufuskie Island Council. Great to see you, Aaron. Thanks for coming in.
Thank you, Allie. My pleasure.
Well, before we get into how this might work, for people that may not be aware, what existing system is set up now for ferry service to and from Daufuskie? Who oversees that and how does it work?
Well, for several decades, Beaufort County has subsidized to some extent ferry transportation for Daufuskie Island residents. And the way they work it right now is they have an allocation of over $100,000 that they use to help subsidize ridership on an existing private boat contractor. Happens to be a tour operator, has a place to leave from on Hilton Head and a place to dock on Daufuskie. And the county just negotiated with him to work in a schedule that would allow ferry transportation for the island residents, leaving first thing in the morning and then returning in the afternoon.
Okay, so why would people that live on Daufuskie or elsewhere be in favor of having the Lowcountry Regional Transportation Authority taking over overseeing of the ferry service or establishing a marine division? How could that help?
Well, first thing, anybody who is a taxpayer locally needs to be concerned about how their dollars are used best. The Lowcountry Regional Transportation Authority is the state chartered transportation authority for our region. What that means is they were set up to handle public transportation. Beaufort County has so many things going on that they're not really set up to handle transportation. By establishing a marine division, LRTA has at its disposal some tools that Beaufort County either can't go after or simply doesn't have the time to do.
What would those tools be, Aaron?
Certain types of grants, certain types of funding. The LRTA has much better positioning to go after South Carolina Department of Transportation grants, even some federal grants and funding opportunities. So right now, the way it works, Hilton Head, Beaufort County spends $1 on ferry transportation. They get $1 in services back. LRTA, through establishing a marine division, may be able to go after matching grants. So $1 invested with LRTA may actually yield something like $5 worth of services. So from a taxpayer standpoint, it just makes sense to use the proper political vehicle for our ferry transportation.
How do you argue with those that would say, and I'm pulling this from a comment that was in the Island Packet, oh gee, this whole issue of the ferry transportation just has to deal with wealthy people that live on Daufuskie Island. How do you respond to that?
Through education. Daufuskie Island, sure, there is an area that has a private gated community and they have their private ferry boat. But Daufuskie Island has a whole bunch of folks who are just looking for a way to make a living. People who grew up on the island, people who moved to the island to perform some services when there was more business going on. The island is not at all this little secluded enclave of wealthy folks. It's an island, it's a real community with people who are just struggling to get by. So one, the perception that it's just this place of rich folks is not accurate. But secondly, Daufuskie Island contributes millions of dollars to the county in tax revenues. Our services over there are pretty minimal. So to think that it's a public subsidy that we're looking for isn't really accurate either. What we're hoping to see is some of the tax revenues that we're using, that we're contributing, have them be focused a little bit more towards a system that doesn't just benefit Daufuskie Island, but has a regional use with involvement from Savannah to Beaufort, so that everybody benefits and our taxes can actually increase in terms of what we're giving to the county.
I didn't mean to almost interrupt you there, but again, to specify, this would be looking at, as you just mentioned, ferry service potentially to Beaufort, also to Savannah. Can you explain that angle?
Yeah, the reality is, scrap the notion of a Daufuskie ferry. That's not what we're looking at. What we're looking at is connecting two major tourism hubs in the Lowcountry, Savannah and Beaufort County, so that we have, in excess of 10 million visitors annually they're coming to the Lowcountry for a variety of reasons, but amongst those reasons are its natural beauty and our waterways. But most folks, when they get here, don't have an opportunity to get on the waterways. What if we bring them back to what are really the roots of the Lowcountry, when marine transportation, getting from island to island by boat, was the way that it used to get done? weave some of that heritage back in, and as a result, we don't have to build roads, so it's a green solution. No more knocking down these beautiful old live oak trees so that we can expand 170. Now we're talking about using existing waterways, this romance of the water, to connect our population centers in a way that helps to stimulate economic development along the way.
Well, I want to ask you also, with regards to the whole bankruptcy of the resort, would this help as far as moving things along?
There's no doubt it would help. Before the resort went bankrupt, they were funding their own ferry system. That was one of the reasons why they went under. I mean, they never got their arms around operating their own navy. So one of the reasons why people haven't shown up to the table is when you're looking at distressed properties throughout the country that you can invest in, if you have one that has no access and you have to figure out how to do that, all of a sudden a whole bunch of other opportunities look even better. So if we are all of a sudden now looking at a public-private collaboration, something that the public sector says, we're willing to make this work, and then the private sector can say, okay, now that we know that there is an appetite for this, we will now jump on board as partners and help make this to happen. Now all of a sudden, somebody that's looking at investing in this beautiful oceanfront resort no longer has to think, boy, I'm on my own in terms of having a boat. Now they know they've got partners in the whole deal and a network that's going to be so much better than anything they could ever afford to do themselves.
Well, Aaron Crosby, I really want to thank you for coming in and talking about this with us from the Daufuskie Island Council. You are the chair, and I hope you'll come back and let us know what's happening. Thank you so much.
Thank you.